We're going to start this half hour here with reaction to President Biden's exclusive interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. And joining us now are ABC News White House correspondent MaryAlice Parks and contributing political correspondent Rachael Bade. Welcome to you both. MaryAlice, you're always at the White House. What is the White House's reaction right now, especially to those on the Democratic side who are calling for him to drop out?
They've been incredibly dismissive. I mean, they've gone as far as to mock some of these House members that have called for him to step aside, basically teasing them as being low level. It is never a good look when you are making fun of your own friends. I mean, these are Democrats. These aren't people that want to see Donald Trump get elected. These aren't people that want to help Donald Trump get elected. But these are people that know that Biden was already down in the polls, and they now feel like it will be impossible for Biden to make this election about Trump. And there's also Democrats who are just feeling so betrayed. They feel like for so long, the White House shot down any conversation about the president's aging, and that made things worse now in this moment. And the last week, the response has been awful. I've heard from so many Democrats that feel like they've made it worse by sort of keeping the president away from the press days after this botched debate. I was really struck, too, by this statement from Massachusetts Governor MaryAlice. She wrote yesterday that she urged Biden to carefully evaluate whether he remains the best hope to defeat Trump. What was interesting to me is she wrote that after she traveled to D.C. to the White House, sat there with the president. Wow. She was not convinced.
Wow. And Rachael, let's talk about the latest from Capitol Hill. She just mentioned that some feel betrayed. Did this do enough to calm any Democrats' jitters?
Yeah, let me just give you a flavor for some of the text messages I got during this interview. He's done. Pack it in. For those of you who are Game of Thrones fans, one member texted my colleague that we've got a mad king here. I mean, no, this didn't calm the waters is the short answer. But I do think a lot of Democrats were actually shocked by the state of denial that Joe Biden is in right now. He dismissed the polls. He insisted that he's the best person to beat Trump. He suggested that most Democrats are not in this camp of wanting him to step aside. Earth to President Joe Biden, that is not the case. I talk to Democrats all the time. Almost every single one of them to a T on Capitol Hill thinks he's probably going to have to step aside. And so I think, this is all going to come down to next week, right? Lawmakers are back to Capitol Hill. They've been out on recess. What are they going to do about it, right? I mean, a lot of them have not come out and said anything publicly, but I think there's this realization that if they want him to step aside, they're going to have to go on the record and they're going to have to say so.
So, Rachael, you touched on this, but what is the biggest complaint among Democrats about how the president and his inner circle are responding to all this criticism right now? Yeah,
it's very much two things. The lack of communication, the fact that it took him almost a week to call congressional leaders to see, what are you hearing from members? What's going on? I'm okay. I can do this. But also, again, this denialism, this sort of lack of reality and him being in this sort of bubble. I do think one thing from the interview that is particularly interesting that is getting glossed over a little bit, folks are looking at the fact that he said only the Lord Almighty would be able to tell him to step aside, right? But he also didn't answer a question from George Stephanopoulos about whether he would step aside if people like Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, and Chuck Schumer came out. He kept dismissing it.
He said it's not going to happen.
Yeah, he said it's not going to happen. Well, let's see, because these leaders are hearing from their members who are very frantic right now. And look, they're worried about their own jobs. They want to be reelected, and there's a real concern that Biden is going to be a drag on them right now.
And to that point, MaryAlice, what does this say about the campaign right now, even the administration? I mean, is the president isolated right now?
I've talked to a lot of former White House staff and current campaign staff that say absolutely. They think the inner circle is too small. It has gotten even smaller, that the information is not getting to the president, that he is too guarded. To Rachel's point, I've heard this over and over this week, and especially after last night. They think that the president is in denial about his own health and especially about this political crisis. And they are worried about who is giving him advice. Is anyone giving him honest feedback? And that's especially concerning when you're thinking about the president's health. Is anyone giving him honest feedback about his health? I do think this point about could anyone change his mind, though, is really important. We heard the president say he's not going anywhere. A lot of Democrats, a lot of power players in the party are telling me that's weighing a lot on those elected officials, because if they really believe he's not going to change his mind, no one in his inner circle is going to change their mind, then what is the point of coming out publicly? Then they've only damaged his campaign. So I do think that they're going to have to see some sign that he would be willing to step aside before more and more of them are willing to come out and publicly say that he should.
Critical moment, and the clock is ticking until Election Day. MaryAlice Parks, Rachael Bade, as always, thank you so much. We appreciate it.